Why have we chosen Security Copilot? Why do security operations people need a copilot? Well, as it says there, the odds are currently stacked against security operators, and it's stacked against you as organizations. If you look at our digital defense report, which we've just released our 4th digital defense report, we see across our platform 4,000 password attacks every second. So in the time that I've been stood here, there's been a couple of 100,000 password attacks against your organizations. If one of those password attacks is successful, just one, it takes about 60 minutes for that adversary to put enough tools on your organization to start deleting backups, to start exfiltrating your data, and then eventually ransomwaring you. And when they get there, they don't just ransomware you once. They'll get you once for the decryption key, and then they'll get you once not to leak all that data out onto the internet. We also work in a landscape where there's 3.5 million open cybersecurity jobs. So that was taken via LinkedIn, and it was looked across all the job sites. That was about 6 weeks ago. 3.5 open cybersecurity jobs. So cybersecurity operations centers are working in an environment where they're highly skilled, highly motivated, and highly organized adversaries, and not enough people defending the organizations. And I think we heard this from Matthew earlier on as well. The adversaries, they're not shy about using artificial intelligence to do their job better. They're using malware to generate malware faster than the traditional malware scanning tools can keep up. They're using things like Shodan, which is knowledge learning across the internet, to find open SQL injection points, to find places where you've left S3 buckets open on the internet. And probably where we've seen the most uptake, and again from the digital defense report, we've seen a 500% uptake, is on the quality of phishing attacks. Whereas phishing attacks quite often used to be kind of broken English, a lot of the adversaries were in the Middle East, or they were in China, or across in Russia. The quality was garbage, and it was quite easy to spot a phish. That's no longer the case. We see high quality phishing attacks, not just via email. We're now seeing them via Teams. Because the adversaries can respond much faster, real time, using things like Bard or ChatGPT, they can hold a two-way conversation with the user, build that confidence, and then try and get the credentials off them. So, defenders need a new approach. Defenders in the security operations space quite often they've got lots of challenges, right? They've got complex tool sets. They might have a SIEM tool, they might have an antivirus tool, they might have network tracing tools, stuff for on-premises or for off-premises. Quite often you see these security operations centers and they've got 4 or 5 screens around a single person. That's probably why we've got 3.5 million open cybersecurity jobs, because the barrier to entry to learn how to be a security operator is high. And quite often, the best place for the best source of talent for this is university or college, or people who are returning from or changing career. But it's really hard because they're facing complex tool sets, and it'll take like 6 months to train a person to become a security operator in your environment. Again, we've got problems with disconnected processes. So not all your IT is managed by one place. I bet you've got some people who manage your mobile phone, some that manage your desktop, some that manage your cloud, some that manage your network. And when a security operations person does actually find a vulnerability, does find a problem, who do they go to? How do they get it fixed? There's so many different strands for that thread to pull. Again, posture drift. So posture drift, we're really good at assessing new products and services when we put them in brand new. You put in a new service, and you might run it against the NIST framework or SIS, and make sure it meets a load of security controls. What happens when your security controls change? Do you go back and reassess that all your products and services meet those security controls? And then we had a pandemic, right, where all the security controls got shifted to the left to get people working. Have you returned them all to the right to make sure that they're all back on? So, why don't we use AI to make our security operations people more efficient? If they're more efficient, they can work faster. And if they can work faster, they can do more for your organizations. And that's what we're proposing that we can do with the Security Copilot. So, a little bit about Microsoft as a security company. You probably don't, or many people don't actually assume Microsoft is a security company. You know, security is maybe a byproduct of us having to defend our Azure cloud, defend our Xbox cloud, and defend Office 365. Actually, if you take Microsoft Security as a standalone company, we're the biggest security platform vendor in the world. And the reason we're the biggest security platform vendor in the world isn't just because we're really good at antivirus tools or we're really good at blocking emails. It's because we've got so much data. We process 65 trillion security signals every single day. We don't do that by having 40 trillion analysts look at alerts and triage those. We use artificial intelligence, we use machine learning, and we've got actually a threat intelligence center that tracks 300 threat actor groups around the world. We've got a really good and accurate picture of what the security landscape is across the internet. And through Security Copilot, we're going to give that intelligence to every single defender that uses Security Copilot. So we've been using Security Copilot in our own Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center and our own digital crimes unit for about a year now. We've had some private preview customers that have been using Security Copilot. And effectively, what we've been told is the Security Copilot allows these defenders to respond in minutes instead of hours. We're able to simplify things that were really complex, you know, threat hunting queries, looking for indicators of compromise, understanding what the tactics, techniques, and processes is of threat actors, and just ask in natural language queries, removing that barrier to entry, allowing us to tap into talent that we didn't have before. Use the AI to help us when we see an alert or an incident, tie it together with other alerts and incidents that are going on in our environment. But at the same time, not just give the answers. Upskill the talent so that we can take on the brightest brains that are available to us and turn them into cyber defenders. We know we're not the only company that's making these claims at the moment. Palo Alto's coming out with a generative AI model. Google Chronicle have as well. CrowdStrike are about to launch theirs. But we reckon we've got an advantage. We've worked with OpenAI, the people who made ChatGPT. We've invested in them pretty heavily. And we've actually taken the GBT models and the things that they've learned, the things like the attacks, the grandmother attack that was discussed earlier on. We've learned from that and iterated it, and we've taken the GBT models and plugged them into the Azure data centers, the Azure data centers that are working worldwide. We're then taking that great computer science and that great machine learning, putting it in the data centers, but we're also training it just on the threat intelligence that we get through our Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center. So that's those 65 trillion signals, that's those 300 threat actor groups that we track worldwide. That's what we're training the Copilot model on. We're going to give it access to the Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence Service. So the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Service, if you don't know, it's a curated list of articles and threat actor profiles, along with the indicators of compromise, things like the file hashes, the IP addresses, the threat actor profiles. We're going to give the Copilot access to that intelligence so it always knows what's going on the internet. And also we're going to give, through the Copilot, access to the prompt books and the skills that our Threat Intelligence Center, our defenders, use to hunt our environments for threat actors. And with that, I'm going to go to a demo. I just want for a moment or two for you to imagine that I'm not a senior technical architect. That in fact, I'm a returner. I've decided to change career and I've gone and studied at college to become a cyber defense operations center person. I've spent about a week with a colleague in a security operations center. And my colleague said to me, my buddy said to me, hey, Neil, you've asked some pretty good questions over the last week. We're going to have a little look at what you can do. I'm going to give you a case from our Sentinel security information and event management system. And I want you to report back and tell me what you find. Now I've looked at Sentinel and I've looked at the Defender portal. And to be honest, I find them a bit overwhelming. So instead, I've decided to go to what's called the Security Copilot, which I've been told I've had made available to me. So rather than looking at all these threat grids and these really colorful alerts and trying to put them together and trying to understand it, I've just typed into the Security Copilot, which just gave me a prompt box. Can you summarize incident 29088? And I've actually put it says this is an engineer environment, so we had to ask what the log analytics workspace was. So anyway, the Copilot's gone out and it's searched for me. It's actually gone into the Sentinel database. It's used the skill at the top there. And it's returned for me that incident 29088 involves a file download from a SAP file. But it looks like it's come from an IP address that's malicious. This incident also involves 3 entities. That's an IP address where the file was downloaded from, the host name of the PC of where it was downloaded to, and the account name of the user that downloaded the file. Now I know after my week with my buddy, with my mentor, that the best way to look after this incident is to kind of follow the breadcrumbs. So I want to know a bit more about these entities. Now, I could go to 3 different sources. There's an external IP address there, so I need to go to some threat intelligence service, Recorded Futures or Shodan or Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence, preferably. There's a PC host name there, so I could go to Intune to find out what its compliance status is, or I could go to the Defender database just to find out more information on that inventory. And then I've got an account, so I would have to go to the Entra ID or Azure Active Directory to find out more information about that. So that would be 3 different tools that I would normally have to go to. But I don't really need to do that, because I can just ask the Copilot. Can you tell me more about these entities? Now the Copilot's going to spider out to those 3 different sources of information that I told you about. And it's going to come back after it's run its skills. And it's going to tell me at the top that the IP address it's malicious and it's been involved in the file download. What the host name is, what the operating system was when it last checked in, what its IP address. And it's given me the full directory information about a chap called Scott who lives in Washington. Now, I'm really interested in this malicious IP address. And again, I could find out more information by flipping screen and going to another threat intelligence source. But instead, I'm just going to say, hey, you know this IP address is malicious. Can you give me more information about that, why that's malicious? Now the Copilot's going to reach out to the Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence Service, and it's going to get me information about this IP address. It's going to tell me that it's associated with 2 cybersecurity things. Now, cybersecurity is one of these I said it's got a high barrier of entry. It's because we talk nonsense like this. It's telling me that this IP address is related to a thing called Cobalt Strike and Silk Typhoon. Now, I know what those are, but if you don't work in cybersecurity, those are just random words that are put together. So I'm going to say, hey, tell me more about this Cobalt Strike and Silk Typhoon. Is it somewhere that I can get a new shirt? It's not. It's going to tell me that Cobalt Strike's actually some penetration testing tooling that was open source that's actually been weaponized by threat actor groups across the world to attack people instead of for good. And it's going to tell me that Silk Typhoon's a Chinese threat actor group. It's one of those 300 threat actor groups that we track through Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence. And Silk Typhoon like to use Cobalt Strike as a launching off point to attack organizations. So this was all really good information. I've learned quite a lot about Cobalt Strike and Silk Typhoon. But it's probably best that I get back on this task that my mentor's given me. So I want to know what devices this user's got. How big might this incident have spread? And I want to know whether those devices were in compliance, because we've set up compliance rules in Intune. I've also asked it to format that as a table for me. So I just asked it again, hey, can you tell me what devices are related to this user? And it's gone out to Intune and it's formatted me a table. It's told me that Scott's got 3 devices there, a Surface laptop, a virtual machine, and a cloud PC. And I could export that to Excel right now to give to my mentor and say, hey, look, I found this user, they downloaded a file, it's associated with this Cobalt Strike and Silk Typhoon, and this is the devices that he runs. That'd be a pretty good result for someone that's only been working in a cybersecurity operations center for a week or 2. But I'm feeling pretty confident. So I want to see if there's any other incidents that are related to this. So yet again, I could start writing quite complex threat hunting queries to say, hey, we've had this IP address, we've had this user, tell me more about it. So I'm just going to ask the Copilot, hey, can you hunt across Microsoft Defender 365 and see if this user and their emails have any other related alerts? And the Copilot's going to write me a KQL query. KQL, for those that don't know, is a custo query language. It's the language that we use to threat hunt across the Defender and Sentinel information stores. And there we go. It's written me the KQL query that I could now take away. I could put it in my OneNote. I could create a custom alert from that so it can run again. Or it can just run it for me like it's done just now. So I can see there's now about 20 more emails that are related to alerts and what Scott's been doing. So again, I could just export that into Excel, and I can now write a report and hand it in and say, hey, look at this job. I found out that there was this file downloaded. It came from a malicious IP address. It was related to Cobalt Strike and Silk Typhoon. This is the user's devices, and these are the other alerts that are associated with it. Now that might take me, maybe an hour, half an hour to write that up. But we actually have a large language model sitting behind here. So rather than me having to go and write this report up as a technical summary, I can just ask the Copilot again, hey, could you write a report based on this incident and give me some recommendations on how I could resolve it? And off the Copilot goes. It's going to take all that information that we've just collected, it's going to put it all into the large language model, and it's going to write me a report, which I can now copy and paste and give to my mentor. Now, this is all really good, and as I said, I could export this and I could hand it off and I could print it off and give it to my mentor. But perhaps I want to pass this off to somebody else in my team. Maybe it's been too critical and I need to give it back to my mentor to carry on the investigation. Or maybe I just want to use it in a stand-up later on to show what a good job I did and that you should take me on as a permanent employee. So we also have this concept of pinning. So I can take this conversation that I've just had with the Copilot and I can either select parts of it or I can select the whole thing. And I can pin it to a pin board, and the pin board's just like a digital whiteboard, if you like. It's going to take all that information, it'll take the summary, it'll take the prompts that I asked, and it pins it to the pin board. The pin board's automatically given it a title, so I can find it again in the future, and it's also tagged it with all those important bits of information that might make it searchable. So things like the incident ID, the fact that it had malicious IP, and it was Cobalt Strike and Silk Typhoon. And at this point, I could export that or I can share it with my other colleagues and we can all work on that pinboard interactively. Okay, so that's what we call the interactive experience, and the interactive experience is the one that, you know, it gives us a really good demonstration. However, we also have within Security Copilot an embedded experience. Okay, find my mouse. So on the screen here, we've got the Defender portal for Woodgrove Bank. Woodgrove Bank's just a fictitious organization. And Microsoft Defender is what we're using to manage our incidents and alerts. If we go to the incidents and alerts page here, and I click on the incidents, I'm going to see at the top of this incident page that it looks like somebody's launched a business email compromise attack on Woodgrove Bank. Business email compromise is pretty much what confidence tricking to the max, where you try and get someone to wire you money, or you're pretending to be somewhere else. At the top of this, though, what we've seen, our machine learning models and our end user behavior models within Defender have actually seen enough signals come through to notice that there's been a business email compromise type attack on this organization, and it's tagged it as a BEC fraud. So this is AI that's built in to the Defender platform right now. It does this already. It's using our automatic attack disruption tooling to take signals from Defender for Office, Defender for Endpoint, and in this case, it'll be Defender for Endpoint and Defender for Office. And it's tagged this as a business email compromise fraud attack going on. You'll see that it's been tagged by the attack disruption tool, and it's BEC fraud. And with Security Copilot, rather than just giving us a whole bunch of unrelated alerts that I might have to put together as an analyst, it's now on the right-hand side summarizing that incident. So I can immediately go back to my bosses and say, hey, we're under a BEC attack, and I can just copy and paste this summary of the incident while I go and investigate it further. So there's a couple of really important points regarding the Security Copilot. Number one, we're not actually taking your data to feed it into another third-party system. We're not using something like an OpenAI. We're running the Security Copilot within your tenancies, within the UK data centers. And your data is your data. We're not using that data to train our analytical models, and we're certainly not using it to train our foundational AI models. And some of that's actually for the protection of our own foundational AI models. We want to curate what's in there, and we want to make sure it's not polluted. We want to make sure that your data is still protected by everything that you've agreed to in the trust center. All the terms and conditions that you've already signed up for regarding your Office 365 security, your Defender security, and what you use in Sentinel is absolutely maintained when we use Security Copilot. We're also grounded in our 6 responsible AI principles. Brad Smith, our president, has spoken at the AI Safety Summit in Bletchley Park last week. He's also been to the White House and spoken to the EU. The reason I draw out our responsible AI principles is the Copilot is not an autopilot. It's not a replacement for any automation tooling that you're doing at the moment. The Copilot will provide you, the Security Copilot will provide you as a security analyst recommendations on what the best cybersecurity activity is you should take. It'll provide you recommendations and guidance. It will not take any positive action at the moment. So the Copilot will not see an alert and add an IP to a block list. It won't isolate a device off the network. At this point in time, the AIs are not conscious. It's not sentient. So it can't understand the consequences of its actions, but it is there to guide you and give you those stepping stones as a cyber operations person. Thank you.